Today's fairy tale is called The Princess in the Suit of Leather. It is an Egyptian story, and it's about a man who tries to marry his daughter. You thought I told you all those fairy tales, right? But no, there's more. There's a king, his wife, and their daughter, and the wife dies. After he mourns a year, the king decides he wants to marry again, and so he tells all his people, "This is my wife's anklet," like a bracelet for an ankle. "Find me the girl, rich or poor, whose ankle fits this anklet." Because apparently he promised the queen as she was dying that that's how he'd pick his next wife. They look all over the country, cannot find a woman who will fit this anklet. The old woman matchmaker he's put in charge of this eventually says, "You know, we haven't tried the princess. Let's try her." They try it on her, and it totally fits her perfectly. They go to the king and they're like, "We found someone," and he's like, "Yay," and they're like, "Hold on though. It's your daughter." But then the old woman says, "Why not marry the princess? Why give her to a stranger and deprive yourself?" So he agrees, sets all the plans into motion, and does not tell his daughter. What she does get told is, "You're gonna get married," and she's happy to get married to whoever her dad picked. And like all the servants are keeping it a secret from her because they know she's not gonna be okay with this. One day she bribes one of her servants with a gold bangle to tell her who she's gonna marry, and she's like, "Yeah, it's your dad." She felt as sick as someone with a 40-day fever. I bet. She jumps over the palace walls and goes to a tanner and says, "Hey, will you make me a suit entirely of animal hides so that only my eyes show through it?" It's why sometimes this story is called the leather burqa. Well, she gives him tons of gold, so he and his wife and children work from noon to night and get her this suit by the morning. It says when she puts it on, anyone looking at her would think she was nothing but a pile of hides. She lays down by the city gate. Well, the next morning, the king goes to get her and realizes she's not there. He sends soldiers all over the city, and the soldiers even come up to her and they're like, "Hey, have you seen the king's daughter?" And she has this little rhyme she says, "My name is Julita, for my coat of skins, my eyes are weak, my sight is dim, my ears are deaf, I cannot hear, I care for no one far or near." So they're just like, "Okay, guess you didn't see her then," and they leave. She runs away, still wearing her hides, and travels so far that she gets to another kingdom, but she's so weary and worn out by the time she gets to that kingdom, going in the heat in the whole leather body outfit. She collapses next to the women's quarters of the sultan. The slave girl looks outside and she's like, "What is that pile of hides?" And then she sees the bright eyes sticking out, and she goes to the queen and she's like, "There's a monster outside." I think it's an ifrit, which is a demonic monster in Islamic folklore. But the queen's not scared. She's like, "Ooh, that sounds interesting. Have it brought to me." So they bring her up. They realize it's a girl in skins and they're like, "Who are you?" And she just does the same rhyme again. The queen's like, "Get her some food and drink. We're gonna keep her around to amuse us." She stays living with the queen and being a servant till one day all the women get invited to like an all-night feast celebration at the sultan's place. They ask our girl if she wants to go with them and she just repeats the rhyme. But once they're gone, she takes off all the hides and she goes. "She was tall as a cypress with a face like a rose and the silks and jewels of a king's bride." 'Cause she was gonna be a king's bride. "She seemed to fill the room with light." So everyone whispers, "Who is this amazing girl?" Everyone wants to hang out with her. But at the end, she wants to run away home and keep her secret. So she drops some pearls and jewels to keep all the women from chasing her because they're like, ooh, jewels. And then she gets away. The next morning, the queen's son, who wasn't at the feast, comes to say good morning to his mother, and all she can talk about is this amazing girl who was at the ball. She's like, "Son, if I could find this girl, I would want you to marry her for real." So he says, "I'll come to the ball tonight, and if she shows up, I'll try to find out who she is and where she's from." The second night, she shows up to the ball again, and then she tries to distract everyone with the pearls and tries to run away. But the prince is waiting for her. He blocks her path. He even grabs her arm and says, "Who's your father? Where'd you come from?" She fights him to get away, and in the scuffle ends up pulling his ring off his hand. As she's running away, he's like, "By Allah, tell me who you are. Where are you from?" And she just says, "I live in a land of paddles and ladles." The next day, he's like, "Mom, I got a journey to the land of paddles and ladles, wherever the heck that is." Tells all his servants, "All right, prepare for a big journey." Mom has the servants make him a bunch of food for the trip, and our girl makes him one tiny loaf of bread and puts the ring inside. And so all the food gets brought to him, and he sees this one little loaf that is misshapen and doesn't look good. In fact, the mom's gonna throw it away, and he's like, "Wait, who made that?" And she's like, "Oh, it's this weird girl who wears hides. It is as misshapen as she is," she says of the bread. But he's like, "No, I want to eat it." And he opens it up, finds the ring, and then he understands what she meant about the land of the ladles. It's the kitchen. So he goes to his room and he's like, "I will not eat unless that leather girl brings me the food." She comes in with his tray and says the little rhyme, but he says, "Come over closer and fill my cup." And when she gets close enough, he grabs her, pulls out a knife, and rips the leather suit open. Then there stood the maiden, one who could say to the moon, "Set," that I may shine in your stead. He hides her, calls to his mom comes up and she's like, oh, it's the girl from the ball. So then our girl reveals everything. Yes, I've been both people. She and the prince get married and live in the sweetest bliss. But it's not over. Our girl's dad has come to regret his decision and has set out searching all over the country looking for her. He totally blames the old woman who gave him the idea because he takes her with them everywhere, dragged behind the procession in chains. He reaches the city where our girl's living with her new man. As soon as she sees them, she recognizes them and she's like, husband, invite those people in for dinner. The prince says to his wife, hey, what's up with these people? Why do you want them here? And she goes, give me your clothes, let me dress as you, and then you'll find out. She dresses as the prince and goes to talk to the king and everyone with him. She's like, hey guys, let's all tell stories. And the king's all sad. He's like, no, leave me alone. And she's like, well, then I'll tell you a story. And she tells the whole story of everything that happened to her. And it's funny, while she's telling it, every now and then the old woman in the chains who's with them would interrupt and say, can you find no better story than this, my son? And in the end, she finishes and says, guess what? It's me, I'm your daughter. And it says in the morning, they flung the old woman over a tall cliff because we're putting all the blame onto her and none on the king, apparently. And the king gives his daughter and the prince half his kingdom and they live in happiness for the rest of their lives. Like I said before, this is a very common folktale type. If you want to hear more European variations of it, you can look at number 15 and number 64 on my fairy tale playlist. Some of the most famous ones are All Kinds of Fur, or All Alairau, and Donkey Skin. They're all princesses escaping their fathers and then hiding themselves in some kind of gross clothing. Check out my book, Dust Spells, a reimagining of the 12 Dancing Princesses, which does not have this trope in it. And my podcast, Folktales and Fairy Lore, link is in the bio.